I enjoyed your performance of Chopin's Nocturne in C sharp minor, and I find you to be a musical and gifted young pianist. I think that you like this piece, and I can say that because of the way that you played it, and also because of the choices of sound and nuances that you incorporated in your interpretation. And just as with any other performance, interpretation, any other piece, we can always study more, and we can always think of new ideas that we can possibly incorporate. Nocturne is a night piece, and night was a fascination of 19th century artists. Night is mysterious, it brings the unknown, and it was something that really fired up equally artists and audiences. This piece is written in C sharp minor, and C sharp minor is dark, a little bit like the night itself. And to me, it brings feelings of nostalgia, even sadness. Maybe you have a story for this piece already. I would think of perhaps separation from a dear friend or a family member, and looking forward to the reunion, hoping to see that dear person soon again. And to my ear, the piece starts with a sigh. And it is important for that sigh to really come through as one phrase. The first phrase is separated by eighth note rests. And we need to try to find a way to bridge those rests so that we can connect all these notes into one idea. Be careful not to accent chords that come after the rests. as you hear, then the phrase is chopped into smaller pieces. Rests are very important. Silences are also part of music, and we need to balance the sound and silence in the musical sentences that we create. I suggest that you practice only the top voice, but without rests. Listening very well for the destination note, which is the F double sharp. Once that is comfortable, I suggest doing the same thing with the left hand, only the top voice of the right hand and the left hand. And once that is learned, then you can try playing everything together, so all the voices as written. And when you come to the last chord of this phrase, stay with it, listen to it, be hypnotized by it through the next two beats, through the rest. And then what happens is the same idea comes back, just softer, even more delicate, even more gentle, like an echo, which leads us into the beginning of the story after this introduction, which is it's so beautiful and expressive, so expansive and singing, but it's difficult to play long notes at the piano. It's hard to create a beautiful connected singing line. I suggest that you really think about where is your destination. So in this instance it would be F sharp, after which you phrase away. Speaking of phrasing away, when you come to the end of that idea, of that motif, make sure not to accent, but really phrase off beautifully. Phrase off with your hand, round it off. That will help the phrase breathe, and it will also help move forward. When you play the trill, lighten your fingers, turn them into little rubber bands. They are very movable and energetic but light, so don't push. Your arm is still very free. The left hand is extremely important support. Try not to play you may hear I'm playing one note at a time, I'm playing one finger at a time, so every finger is a little too nervous, so to speak. It's a little bumpy, a little too direct. We want the left hand also to sing and to connect well. So try to think of one unit, think of one movement that hand provides, and it unifies all the fingers in one breath. So one movement, instead of moving fingers individually, which starts to cut and chop. It doesn't allow for that beautiful long phrase that I was suggesting. It is important that you practice this way. Think about long notes in the way that I suggested, and then work on the left hand in the same way as I just showed right now. Smooth, connected, continuous, and the hand organizing fingers into gestures. Practicing without pedal also is very important, because pedal can be our best friend or worst enemy. Too much pedal makes ears quite lazy, so it is a good idea to practice without the pedal. I'll move on to the next section. Very different key, different mood. It's sunny, as if the morning came and we see the light on the horizon, or few sun rays came through the thick clouds, and we have more hope and joy. It's an anticipation of that new meeting which I was suggesting in my story. So the right hand still needs to show one gesture. Make sure it's not one note at a time, but still connected into long phrase. Perhaps practice one beat at a time, maybe 2 beats. Thinking about that gesture, then 3 beats. You hear what I'm after. I'm again after that singing line and notes that connect. The same thing, of course, for the left hand. And at the end of that segment, there is a grace note and dotted rhythm. playing just the top voice. Dotted rhythm can be tricky because it can cut the phrase into small bits. So, and we can also hear accents on every beat. We want smoothness, of course. So I suggest that you practice just the top voice like I'm showing right now, but you may practice it without dotted rhythm. Just like the very beginning, I was suggesting something similar for the opening of the nocturne. Once you're comfortable with that, try with the rhythm and with the grace note, which is very light. And when that is comfortable, then we can meet even bigger challenge, which is playing the bottom voice. And this is hard because so many notes are played by thumb. I have 3 notes here played by thumb, and that's difficult. It's difficult to create a smooth line. The hand needs to help the thumb and help it connect better. So as a little preparatory exercise, you can try doing, say, 5 notes, all with the thumb, and guiding that thumb with your hand, and then transfer that idea there. And once that is comfortable, put the 2 voices together and still think of a good phrase. And then comes the next section, which shows this rhythm and so forth. So now we really dance. This is quite happy and jolly and bouncy, and actually in a way we leave the nocturne so that we can meet a dance, something like a mazurka. You may be familiar with the folk dance, the Polish folk dance mazurka, and this to me sounds very much like a mazurka. So joyful, happy, and still piano. So the general dynamic is piano, so that the dreamy idea remains, but within that dream we can have different nuances and different ideas. So keep that in mind, and when you practice it, still think about one movement, one gesture. So this whole thing is one movement of the hand, instead of playing again finger by finger. So this goes hand in hand with what I said about practicing left hand before. We need that smoothness and gesture so that we can dance here better. I've been mentioning singing quite a bit, and it's really not an accident to connect singing, especially with Chopin, because Chopin was so inspired by opera, by singing, by human voice, and he felt that human voice is truly superior in the way that it produces sound and creates phrases to really any instrument. And he tried all the time to emulate the human voice and the phrasing of the human voice in his pieces. He was an avid opera goer, and he listened to operas regularly, sometimes even daily, in Paris where he lived, and he urged his students to do the same. His writing is informed by the bel canto style, which is a special opera style coming from late 18th century, and bel canto in translation from Italian is beautiful singing, and that's really what we need to do in this piece, and actually in Chopin's music in general. I wish you great new discoveries in this piece and in music in general, and I also wish you some great times with this nocturne.
we talk about a little bit about the study Opus 25 number 5 played by Shi Feng. I think there is sometimes a misunderstanding about this study, about the scherzando, which has different meanings in Italian, and in this case probably is not so live, is not joking, is something a little bit inside of the sound. Shi Feng has very good hands, and mechanically is very, very strong. The idea is to consider this etude in horizontal line, not necessarily in vertical line. So many times Shi Feng doesn't miss any note. I mean, he's very okay, but many times what he plays is little bit vertical, and especially in the beginning, considering this, the inner line, so is so there is a mechanical way to consider this etude, and I think that Chopin tried to teach with this etude the movement between thumb and the rest of the hand, and is a lot of things preparing the new position. So is so always before I go a little bit back with the camera so it's possible to see, sometimes is to play with arm doesn't work so well because it's not enough evocating the sound. This is music that doesn't describe something which is happening now, is something from the past. So is always the sound is not so active, should be little bit passive, and in all this etude the pronation and supination of the forearm is very important. This kind of movement because this kind of movement changes the weight in the two parts of the hand, and makes much easier to have different colors between the parts. Of course, to think to this etude in this way needs a lot of patience, to work very slowly. So the thumb should not be played staccato. And also there is a 16 notes, not an acciaccatura, is not, but is a line, is like a singing line inside. So I wouldn't play it so fast, and considering the emotion of a little bit nostalgia and little bit of sadness, is very far in the time, long time ago, not now. And of course, Chopin chants the rhythm inside, and this kind of with two 8 notes, and after, which is this is very demanding, very difficult, because the acciaccatura is not with, doesn't come together, it's not this, comes before, which makes the performing on this etude very, very difficult. And we should try to have a legato and have the inner part very far, because in the first 2 pages we have different plays of kind of staccato. We have in the upper part, because it's a 16 note, this is inside. Is not long. Is not. The long is. And also when we do, it's always. Also, another thing in the music in 3/4, which is in 3, the third movement is always something which goes together to the first. 1, 2, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1. This comes a lot of time also in the orchestral pieces. You don't meet 1, 2, 3, 1, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. This moves the music and makes it not static. Of course, also this always stay very relaxed with the upper part of the arm, and very fluid with the wrist to move always in lateral direction from left to right and go back. This is, I think, the most important. And also I would not play so slow. I mean, I would not make a big difference between the first part, the vivace, and the più lento. Is not lento. Is più lento means a little bit slower than the first part. Più lento is not lento, so it is not so slow. And also at the very end, Shifeng is very vertical. This is not vertical. Is like is difficult to explain in English. Is not la sol la sol la sol. Is always far, never strong. And also the triple F, the fortissimo, is to be considered on the Chopin pianos, not on our pianos. Fortissimo 3F con forza on our pianos is a lot of noise. On the Chopin pianos it was absolutely not possible to have such an invasion of sound. So should be everything more relaxed and let it go, because it's around you is not there. Really is, for me, is not easy to explain everything, because I would have liked to listen to Shifeng personally and so work on little section of mechanical movements which could have made him more fluid. But I must say that he looks like a very talented boy and very sure of himself. Just I would suggest, as a general suggestion, to divide the parts and begin to think to the inner part as a singing tone, even far in the piano, but singing tone, not rhythmical tone. Okay.
Chiang, congratulations for your performance of your D major Haydn piano sonata. It's a very good performance. You're really young and talented. So the control of of the sound is interesting. The rhythm is interesting. Your technique is very, very good. But now let's focus on some details to improve the performance stylistically. For me, first of all, you have to take care of the pedal. the main problem is that sometimes you are going too long in the use of the pedal. Very important to be very, very precise in the place where to use it. There are some places, for example, in the beginning of the development where Haydn writes a pedal made by the fingers. So we don't need to use that much pedal in this section. So let's try from the beginning and let's see what we can do improving. For example, don't play too fast because it's allegro, and don't play too much staccato. You have to think that left hand is like a cello. So we have to make contrast between the line of the cello and a little bit more tenuto and espressivo and elegant right-handed. With elegance. Let's think that this G has to go to the F sharp, like as an appoggiatura. Then, when we start with this second idea, let's try the way to preserve still the cello part in the left hand, and right hand is a little bit more like. Finally, in the cello, we have a long note. So it's better to arrive to the bar number 21 with more energy. So remember, this point has to change the color. Cello has here a very important part. So here it's better from bar number 27, it's better to have a good balance. So this opposite motion, contrary motion, phases more precise. And don't play too much pedal here. Very precisely. From this element, a new idea. Of course, it's a little bit more legato from this idea on bar 34. Let's start on bar 34. Have a very flexible wrist. Very rapid articulation, but never heavy. When you play these elements, you have to be sure that the quality of the light of the top. For example, if in the group of the four notes, the most important will be the second one. So, and now this is important to reach, to find a tension in this chromatic element, but when you have the Napolitan key, we have to change color. So here, yes, but if we use the pedal, we have in the bar from bar number 42 with the Napolitan key, it is better to use fuse pedal, but not too much. We have still to understand that the note is short, and not okay, and not without, but okay. So it's better to find the half pedal here. So for me, it's more elegant to use the turn, to play the turn on the beat. Why I prefer to play this on the beat? Because we have at the end, he show us another solution, that is this from bar 151. So here he's using these appoggiaturas, short appoggiatura, and not. So I prefer. So the solution of the turns has to be for me on the beat. Okay, this is. Remember this idea. The finale, we can find two elements that are making two different colors. The live element of the group of four notes and the stable and the cadenza. So make a different sonority. When we go to the developments, of course, it's very different. More tender. Little bit agitato with the double thirds. Here's six. Now in the minor section can be little bit longer the notes. If in the major section we had it's very important not to repeat from the real note, but from the upper note, because in this case we have repeated notes in the melody, cioè mi, mi, fa, mi, la, mi. So it's better to start at the turn from the upper note, not from the real. So the idea of bar number 9 we have in bar number 78, and from here is in the minor key. So it's very important to have little bit more sad approach to the sonority, holding little bit more the notes. So less staccato, we play little bit more longer and appoggiato. It reminds me to Bach. So it's very important to don't play too legato, but to give a small separation from the short note before the long note. Yampa, yampa, la fa sol mi, e on si do la si sol la. The third, the answer. here start a new tended line harmonically to the diminished chord of bar 86. So play a crescendo from here after the 3 bars that were very tender. The approach has to be different. Now it's bass until here has to be really dramatic. Don't release the sonority as you have done, because it doesn't work. It's not interesting to the contrast between the octave has to be a great contrast. Suspended in the fermata. Try to improvise a small cadenza here. It's not necessary to go direct. It's very important. It's in the style to make a cadenza. Or another one. Or simply stop on the 7th. But you can create everything, of course. I'm sure you will find your personal idea. Yeah, this was very good. Again, we have the same thing. So suspended. And now the team cross to the left hand. More interesting and live element. Difference between the G major chord and the diminished one for C chord. So the first one doesn't resolve too much forte because yeah. So here we have to make this difference. We go after we have 2 cadenzas, same bar 149 and 152. We have to make the difference how to exit from these 2 bars and to make the second one more important to arrive on the bar 153 because we are in the finale. So let's try from the diminished chord that we have it's better to exit piano and here I would prefer a much more fantasy in the imagination to create differences, nuances, new way to start new sonority all the time when you start a new register. So discover much more the register of the piano and work with the sonority and the color and the tone of this register to make something more interesting in the listener. The listener has to remain surprised from your playing, remember. Not shocked from your technique, but enchanted. Has to remain surprised, like, oh, such beautiful colors I heard from your playing, okay? So, Kyang, really congratulations for your performance, and you are very talented. I'm sure you can play a wonderful Haydn D major sonata. I hope to hear you again in the future. All the best to you. Ciao.